Hello, and welcome to Sleepy Dreams. Tonight, we're venturing into the shadowy corners of the botanical world, where beauty meets strangeness, and where one of nature's most peculiar creations has been captivating and repelling visitors in equal measure for centuries. We're talking about a flower so rare, so bizarre, and yes, so memorably pungent, that it has earned itself the rather ominous nickname of the corpse flower. It's a tale of evolutionary ingenuity, patient waiting, and one truly unforgettable smell. I hope this video isn't too interesting. Though if it does happen to keep you awake, at least you'll be learning something fascinating in the process. Not the worst way to spend a sleepless night. Before we begin, if you enjoy drifting off to the gentle hum of science, I'd be very grateful if you tap the like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps more sleepy minds find their way here. And while you're settling in, I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. Feel free to share it in the comments. It's always wonderful to see how far these quiet little journeys reach. So, get cozy. Let your shoulders relax. Let your thoughts slow down like the patient unfurling of a massive petal in the humid air of a rainforest. And just a soft reminder before we begin. This video is for educational and relaxation purposes only. It's not intended as medical advice, a cure for insomnia, or a recommendation to seek out the world's smelliest flowers in person. Though that last one is always encouraged if you're feeling adventurous. Let's begin. In the steamy, verdant depths of the Sumatran rainforest, where humidity hangs thick in the air and the canopy filters sunlight into a perpetual green twilight, there grows a plant that challenges every expectation we might have about flowers. It doesn't bloom in cheerful bursts of color throughout the spring and summer. It doesn't perfume gardens with sweet fragrances that make you want to stop and take a deep breath. Instead, it waits, sometimes for years, sometimes for a decade. And when it finally decides to bloom, it does so with such theatrical flair, such biological audacity, that people travel from around the world just to witness it, even if witnessing it means holding their noses. This is Amorphophallus titanum, known more commonly and rather dramatically as the Titan Arum, or even more memorably, the corpse flower. The name alone tells you most of what you need to know. Titan, because it produces one of the largest unbranched inflorescences in the plant kingdom. Arum, because it belongs to the family Araceae, which includes many other unusual and architecturally striking plants. And corpse, well, that's because when it blooms, it smells exactly like rotting flesh. Not metaphorically, not sort of like, but genuinely, unmistakably turn your stomach and question your life choices like decaying meat. Now, you might reasonably ask why any plant would evolve to smell like death. It seems counterintuitive, even rude. But in the world of botanical evolution, there are no accidents, only strategies. And the corpse flower's strategy, as grotesque as it might seem to human noses, is absolutely brilliant. To understand it, we need to start at the beginning, with the plant itself, its structure, its life cycle, and the very particular circumstances that led to this most unusual adaptation. The Titan Arum is native to the rainforests of western Sumatra in Indonesia. In the wild, it grows on steep hillsides in the understory, that dim, humid zone beneath the main canopy where competition for pollinators is fierce and resources are limited. The plant doesn't look like much for most of its life. In fact, for years at a time, all you'd see is a single enormous leaf rising from an underground tuber. This leaf, which can reach heights of over 15 feet, looks more like a small tree than a typical plant leaf. It's umbrella-shaped, with a smooth green stalk that branches into a complex, lacy canopy of smaller leaflets. This single leaf is the plant's solar panel, its food factory, quietly photosynthesizing and storing energy in the massive underground corm, which can weigh over 200 pounds. The corm is essentially a swollen underground stem, a biological battery where the plant stores all the sugars and starches it produces during its growing season. This energy reserve is crucial because when the time finally comes to bloom, the plant will need every bit of it. A Titan arum bloom is not a casual affair. It's an energy-intensive, all-or-nothing gamble that requires enormous resources, which is why the plant only blooms when conditions are right and when it has accumulated enough stored energy to pull off the spectacle. When the plant is ready, the single leaf dies back and the corm enters a period of dormancy. This can last weeks or months. And then, if you're very lucky and very patient, something extraordinary begins to happen. A new structure starts to emerge from the soil. At first, it looks like a tightly furled spear, pale green or maroon, pushing upward with surprising speed. This is the inflorescence, and once it starts growing, it doesn't stop. In the wild and in cultivation, Titan arum inflorescences have been recorded growing as much as 4 to 6 inches per day. That's faster than bamboo, faster than most plants we typically think of as quick growers. It's growth in fast forward, a biological time lapse that you can almost watch in real time. Over the course of several weeks, this structure rises higher and higher, eventually revealing its true form. What emerges is not a single flower, but rather an inflorescence, a complex structure made up of hundreds of tiny individual flowers clustered together. The whole thing is composed of 2 main parts. At the base is the spadix, a tall central spike that can reach heights of over 10 feet. Wrapped around the spadix is the spathe, a large, petal-like structure that unfurls like a collar or a dramatic cloak. The spathe is typically deep burgundy or maroon on the inside, with a pale greenish cream exterior, and it can measure several feet across when fully open. The spadix itself is even more remarkable. It's not just a spike, it's a heating element. When the flower is ready to bloom, the spadix begins to warm up, sometimes reaching temperatures of nearly 100 degrees Fahrenheit. This is thermoregulation, and it's rare in the plant kingdom. The heat serves 2 purposes. First, it helps to volatilize the chemical compounds that create the corpse flower's infamous smell, spreading the scent far and wide through the forest. Second, it mimics the warmth of a decomposing animal, making the deception even more convincing to the plant's intended audience, which we'll get to shortly. At the base of the spadix, hidden within the folds of the spathe, are the actual flowers. These are tiny, densely packed, and divided into 2 zones. The upper zone contains the male flowers, which produce pollen. The lower zone contains the female flowers, which are receptive to pollen. This separation is important. It's the plant's way of avoiding self-pollination, which would reduce genetic diversity. The female flowers mature first, becoming receptive to pollen before the male flowers above them release their own. This temporal separation is called protogeny, and it's a common strategy in plants that rely on external pollinators. And now we come to the heart of the matter, the smell. Because when a Titan arum blooms, it doesn't just sit there looking impressive. It announces itself to the world with one of the most powerful, most distinctive, and most deeply unpleasant odors in the botanical kingdom. Descriptions vary, but most people agree it's a nauseating blend of rotting fish, sweaty socks, feces, and decaying flesh, all rolled into one overpowering wave of olfactory assault. It's the kind of smell that makes your eyes water, your stomach turn, and your brain immediately start looking for the exit. But as revolting as it is to us, to certain insects, it's an irresistible invitation. The corpse flower's target pollinators are carrion beetles and flesh flies, insects that typically feed and breed on dead animals. These insects are drawn to the smell of decay because it signals a potential feeding or egg-laying site. When they detect the scent of rotting meat, they follow it to the source, expecting to find a carcass. Instead, they find a Titan arum in full bloom, warm, fragrant in the most terrible way, and architecturally convincing. The insects land on the spathe and make their way down into the chamber at the base of the spadix, where the flowers are located. Once inside, they wander around, confused perhaps, searching for the rotting flesh that isn't there. As they move, they brush against the female flowers, depositing any pollen they might be carrying from a previous corpse flower visit. This is the plant's goal: cross-pollination, the transfer of genetic material from one individual to another, ensuring genetic diversity and the survival of the species. The insects don't leave immediately. The structure of the spathe and the layout of the flowers create a kind of temporary trap. The insects can get in easily, but getting out is more difficult, at least for a while. They're held in place just long enough to ensure thorough pollination. After about 24 hours, the female flowers are no longer receptive. The male flowers above them begin to release their pollen, dusting the confused and somewhat frustrated insects with a fresh coating of genetic material. At this point, the spathe begins to wilt and collapse, and the insects are free to leave, carrying the pollen with them to the next bloom, if they're lucky enough to find one. This entire process, from the first unfurling of the spathe to the collapse of the structure, lasts only about 24 to 48 hours. That's it. After years of waiting, after weeks of rapid growth, the bloom itself is fleeting. A brief, pungent, spectacular event that happens and then is over. The spathe wilts, the spadix begins to collapse, and the plant, exhausted from the effort, returns to its quiet cycle of leaf growth and energy storage, preparing for the next bloom, which might not come for another 7 to 10 years. This fleeting nature of the bloom is part of what makes the Titan Arum so famous and so sought after. Botanical gardens around the world that are lucky enough to cultivate these plants often don't know exactly when a bloom will occur. They watch the plants carefully, looking for signs: a corm that's large enough, a period of dormancy followed by new growth, the emergence of a bud rather than a leaf. When a bloom is imminent, it becomes a major event. Gardens extend their hours. News outlets report on it. People line up, sometimes for hours, just for a chance to see and, yes, smell this bizarre wonder of nature. Social media lights up with photos and reactions, and for a brief moment, a plant becomes a celebrity. But why has the Titan arum evolved this particular strategy? Why the enormous size, the infrequent blooms, the nauseating smell? To answer that, we need to consider the environment in which it evolved. The Sumatran rainforest is one of the most biodiverse places on Earth. It's packed with plants, animals, fungi, and microorganisms, all competing for resources, space, and reproductive success. For a plant that grows in the understory, where light is limited and pollinators are less abundant than in the canopy, standing out is essential. The Titan arum strategy is one of spectacle and specificity. By producing an enormous heat-generating, powerfully scented inflorescence, it maximizes its chances of attracting the right pollinators from a distance. Carrion insects, which are relatively uncommon compared to bees or butterflies, need a strong, unmistakable signal to find the plant. The size and heat make it visible and detectable. The smell makes it irresistible, and the infrequency of blooms, while risky, means the plant only expends its energy when it has enough stored to make the effort worthwhile. There's also an element of timing involved. In the wild, Titan arums don't all bloom at the same time. Different individuals bloom in different years, on different schedules. This staggered blooming pattern increases the chances that a pollinator visiting one flower will carry pollen to another individual that's blooming at the same time, even if they're separated by distance. It's a bit like a botanical lottery. The plant doesn't know when others will bloom, but by blooming itself, it increases the odds that cross-pollination will occur. The Titan arum's enormous corm also plays a critical role in this strategy. That underground storage organ allows the plant to survive for years between blooms, slowly accumulating the resources needed for the next reproductive event. The corm can persist even if the above-ground parts die back due to drought, browsing, or other environmental stresses. It's a survival mechanism, a way of weathering the unpredictable conditions of the rainforest floor. Now, let's talk a bit about the history of this plant and how it came to capture the imagination of botanists and the public alike. The Titan arum was first scientifically described in 1878 by Italian botanist Odoardo Beccari, who encountered it during an expedition to Sumatra. Beccari was struck by the plant's size and strangeness, and he collected seeds and specimens to bring back to Europe. The plant was given its scientific name, Amorphophallus ditanum, which translates roughly to giant misshapen phallus, a reference to the shape of the spadix. It's a name that has raised more than a few eyebrows over the years, but it is technically accurate, if a bit cheeky. The first recorded bloom of a cultivated Titan arum outside of its native habitat occurred in 1889 at the Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew, in London. It caused an immediate sensation. Victorian society, fascinated by exotic plants and natural wonders, flocked to see it. The bloom was reported in newspapers, and the plant quickly became one of the most famous and sought-after specimens in botanical collections around the world. Since then, the Titan arum has bloomed in botanical gardens across the globe, from the United States to Japan, from Germany to Australia. Each bloom is treated as a special event, often given a name, live-streamed online, and celebrated with public viewings. The plant has become a symbol of botanical curiosity, a reminder that the natural world is full of surprises and that beauty, or at least fascination, doesn't always come in a sweet-smelling package. In cultivation, growing a Titan arum is no small feat. The plant requires warm, humid conditions, similar to its native rainforest habitat. It needs well-draining soil rich in organic matter, and it requires careful watering and feeding to build up the corm's energy reserves. Gardeners and botanists who care for these plants often spend years nurturing them, waiting patiently for the magical moment when a bloom bud appears instead of a leaf. And even then, there's no guarantee. Sometimes the bud aborts. Sometimes the bloom is smaller than expected. Sometimes the plant simply isn't ready, and it returns to leaf production for another few years. But when a bloom does occur, it's worth the wait. The plant's growth is rapid and dramatic. Visitors can watch the inflorescence rise day by day, measuring its progress, anticipating the moment when the spathe will begin to unfurl. When that moment arrives, usually in the late afternoon or evening, the spathe slowly peels back, revealing the deep maroon interior and the towering spadix within. As night falls, the spadix begins to heat up, and the smell, that unforgettable, unmistakable smell, begins to fill the air. For some people, the smell is so overpowering that they can't stay in the room. For others, it's a source of morbid curiosity, a chance to experience something truly unique. And for the plant, it's simply business as usual. The release of volatile compounds like dimethyl trisulfide, isovaleric acid, and trimethylamine, chemicals that are also found in rotting flesh, sweaty feet, and decaying fish. These compounds are produced in specialized cells within the spadix and are released in carefully timed bursts to maximize their effect. The heat generated by the spadix is produced through a process called thermogenesis, a metabolic process similar to what happens in our own bodies when we burn calories to produce warmth. In the Titan Arum, thermogenesis is powered by the breakdown of stored starches in the corm. The plant essentially burns its energy reserves to create heat, a costly but necessary investment. The warmth not only helps spread the scent, but it also makes the flower more attractive to insects, which are drawn to warm surfaces in the cool of the evening. After the peak of the bloom, things move quickly. The female flowers, which were receptive during the first night, close up and are no longer able to receive pollen. The male flowers above them begin to shed their pollen, coating any insects still trapped inside. The spathe starts to wilt and collapse. The smell fades, and within a day or two, the entire structure begins to break down. What remains is the base of the inflorescence, and if pollination was successful, small green fruits will begin to develop over the following weeks. These fruits, which ripen to a bright orange red, contain the seeds of the next generation. In the wild, these seeds are dispersed by birds and other animals that eat the fruits and then excrete the seeds elsewhere in the forest. In cultivation, botanists carefully collect and distribute the seeds to other gardens and institutions, helping to ensure the survival of the species and spread awareness of its conservation needs. Because, for all its fame and fascination, the Titan Arum is not doing well in the wild. Habitat loss due to deforestation, agriculture, and human development has drastically reduced the rainforests of Sumatra. The plant is now listed as endangered by the International Union for Conservation of Nature. Wild populations are fragmented and shrinking, and the long time between blooms makes it difficult for the species to recover quickly. Conservation efforts are underway, both in Sumatra and in botanical gardens worldwide, to protect the remaining wild populations and to maintain genetic diversity in cultivated specimens. In Sumatra, local communities and conservation organizations are working to protect the forests where Titan arums grow, establishing reserves and promoting sustainable land use practices. Botanical gardens play a crucial role as well, not only by cultivating the plants and educating the public, but also by serving as genetic reservoirs. Seeds and corms from cultivated plants can potentially be reintroduced into the wild, helping to bolster struggling populations. There's also ongoing research into the biology and ecology of the Titan arum. Scientists are studying its pollinators, its reproductive strategies, its interactions with soil microbes and fungi, and the chemical makeup of its infamous scent. Each discovery adds to our understanding of this remarkable plant and informs conservation efforts. For example, Understanding which specific carrion insects are the most effective pollinators can help conservationists identify and protect the habitats those insects need, creating a more holistic approach to preserving the species. The Titan arum also serves as an ambassador for rainforest conservation more broadly. Its sheer strangeness and the spectacle of its bloom draw attention to the incredible biodiversity of tropical rainforests and the urgent need to protect these ecosystems. When people line up to see a corpse flower, they're not just witnessing a botanical oddity. They're connecting with a larger story about evolution, adaptation, and the fragility of the natural world. Beyond its ecological significance, the Titan arum has also captured the human imagination in ways that few other plants have. It appears in documentaries, nature programs, and even works of fiction. It's become a symbol of the weird and wonderful, a reminder that nature is capable of producing things far stranger than anything we could invent. It challenges our assumptions about what flowers should be: soft, colorful, sweet-smelling, and asks us to appreciate beauty in forms that might initially repel us. There's something deeply humbling about standing in front of a blooming Titan arum. This plant, which has been growing quietly for years, which has stored energy and waited patiently, which has timed its bloom to coincide with the activity patterns of insects that feed on the dead, represents a kind of intelligence and strategy that is entirely different from our own. It's not conscious, it doesn't plan or think, but it is exquisitely adapted to its environment, shaped by millions of years of evolution into a form that is as functional as it is bizarre. And then there's the smell. That smell. I know it's easy to laugh about it, to make jokes, to hold your nose and grimace. But it's worth pausing to consider what that smell represents. It's a chemical conversation, a message written in molecules, aimed not at us, but at beetles and flies. It's a language we can detect, but not understand. A reminder that the natural world is full of signals and interactions that happen entirely outside of human perception and control. The Titan arum also reminds us of the importance of patience. In a world that values speed, instant results, and constant productivity, here is a plant that takes its time. It grows a single leaf, stores energy, waits. It might wait 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. And then, when the moment is right, it acts. It pours everything it has into a single, spectacular, fleeting bloom. And then it rests again. There's a kind of wisdom in that rhythm, a reminder that not everything worth doing can or should be rushed. For gardeners and botanists who care for these plants, the wait can be agonizing. They nurture the plant year after year, never quite sure when or if it will bloom. They measure the corm, track its growth, watch for signs. And when a bloom finally happens, it's a moment of triumph and relief, a reward for years of patience and care. It's also a shared experience. Blooms are often announced on social media, covered by local and international news, and celebrated by communities of plant enthusiasts around the world. In that sense, the Titan arum brings people together, creating moments of collective wonder and curiosity. There are now hundreds of Titan arums in cultivation around the world, and new blooms are documented every year. Each one is unique. Some are taller, some shorter. Some smell worse than others, if you can imagine. Some attract huge crowds. Others bloom quietly in research greenhouses, witnessed only by a handful of scientists. But each bloom is a reminder of the plant's incredible biology and the delicate balance of conditions required for it to thrive. Interestingly, the Titan arum is not the only plant in the Araceae family with unusual characteristics. The family includes many other species with strange shapes, unusual smells, and specialized pollination strategies. Some produce heat, some trap insects temporarily, some mimic the appearance or scent of fungi or rotting fruit. The family as a whole is a testament to the diversity of evolutionary solutions to the challenge of reproduction in tropical environments. But the Titan Arum, with its size, its smell, and its infrequent blooms, remains the most famous and the most dramatic. It's also worth noting that the Titan Arum is not alone in producing heat or foul odors. Other plants, including some members of the genus Rafflesia and certain species of Stapelia, also emit unpleasant smells to attract pollinators. But the Titan Arum's combination of size, heat, smell, and rarity makes it particularly noteworthy. It's not just a smelly flower, it's a giant, hot, smelly flower that only blooms once every several years. That combination of factors elevates it from botanical curiosity to global phenomenon. In recent years, advances in technology have made it easier for people around the world to experience a Titan Arum bloom, even if they can't be there in person. Botanical gardens often set up live webcams, streaming the bloom in real time so that anyone with an internet connection can watch. Time-lapse videos condense days of growth into minutes, revealing the full drama of the plant's rapid development. And social media platforms light up with photos, videos, and reactions, creating a kind of global conversation around each bloom. This digital connectivity has helped to democratize access to these rare events. You no longer need to live near a botanical garden or have the means to travel to witness a Titan Arum bloom. You can watch from your living room, your office, your bed. You can share the experience with friends and family, sparking conversations about plants, evolution, and the natural world. In this way, the Titan Arum has become a tool for education and engagement, reaching audiences far beyond the traditional boundaries of botanical science. But for all the attention and fascination, the Titan Arum remains, at its core, a plant trying to survive and reproduce in a challenging environment. It doesn't care about crowds or cameras or social media. It cares, in the purely biological sense, about attracting pollinators, producing seeds, and ensuring the continuation of its lineage. Everything else, the spectacle, the smell, the drama, is simply a byproduct of that singular evolutionary drive. And that, perhaps, is the most remarkable thing about the corpse flower. It reminds us that evolution doesn't optimize for beauty or pleasantness. It optimizes for survival. Sometimes that results in flowers that smell like roses. Sometimes it results in flowers that smell like death. Both are equally valid strategies, equally shaped by the pressures of their environment, equally worthy of our attention and respect. So, as we come to the end of our journey into the world of the Titan Arum, let's take a moment to appreciate this strange, patient, wonderfully bizarre plant. It's a reminder that the natural world is full of surprises, that beauty comes in many forms, and that sometimes the most memorable experiences are the ones that challenge our expectations and our senses. The Titan Arum teaches us about adaptation, about patience, about the intricate relationships between plants and pollinators, and about the importance of conserving the habitats that support such extraordinary biodiversity. It teaches us that not everything in nature is designed for human enjoyment, and that's okay. The world doesn't revolve around us. Plants have their own agendas, their own strategies, their own chemical languages. Our role is to observe, to learn, and to protect. And so, Whether you've ever stood in front of a blooming corpse flower, held your nose and marveled at its strangeness, or whether you've only ever heard about it in stories and videos, you're now part of that global community of people who have been touched, in one way or another, by this remarkable plant. You understand a little more about the lengths to which evolution will go, the creativity of natural selection, and the quiet drama unfolding in rainforests and botanical gardens around the world. The next time you hear that a Titan arum is about to bloom somewhere, anywhere, take a moment to follow along. Watch the time-lapse videos, read the updates, imagine the smell if you dare, and remember that behind all the spectacle is a plant that has been waiting, growing, storing energy, preparing for this one fleeting moment to pass on its genes and continue the ancient cycle of life. Because in the end, that's what it's all about. Not the size, not the smell, not the crowds or the cameras, but the simple, profound act of reproduction. The continuation of a species, the quiet persistence of life in a world that is constantly changing. The Titan arum, for all its strangeness, is a testament to that persistence, a living reminder that life finds a way, even in the most unexpected forms. And now, as the spathe of our journey begins to wilt and collapse, as the heat of our exploration fades, and as the metaphorical insects of curiosity carry away whatever pollen of knowledge they've gathered here, it's time to rest, to let the information settle, to drift off into dreams, perhaps of rainforests and giant flowers, of patient waiting and spectacular blooms. Are you still awake? If you are, I hope it's because you were genuinely fascinated by the story of this extraordinary plant. And if you are already halfway to dreamland, may your thoughts be filled with lush forests, towering inflorescences, and the knowledge that somewhere out there, a Titan arum is quietly growing, storing energy, waiting for its moment to bloom. Before you drift off completely, I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is in your part of the world. Drop a comment and share. Have you ever seen a corpse flower in bloom, or is it on your botanical bucket list? And if you found this gentle journey into the world of the Titan arum relaxing, or informative, or both, please do consider giving this video a like and subscribing to Sleepy Dreams. It's a small gesture that helps me keep bringing you more calming, curious content from the natural world and beyond. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the secret life of the corpse flower. Sleep well, dream deep, and don't forget the world is full of wonders, some sweet, smelling, some not so much, but all worthy of our attention and our care. You just have to slow down, breathe through your mouth if necessary, and appreciate the strange and spectacular beauty of it all.